Hello, boys and girls. I miss you so much. It's terrible. Listen, today we're going to be talking about talents. Miss Brigham, I know, has been talking to you about the fact that you have a purpose and that before you were even born, God made sure to give each of you talents. Not all the same, but talents that you could use to be able to have people see God in you. Now, I know that when I was young, I knew some of my talents. I knew that I was very creative. I'd love to sew different things. I sewed a Big Bird costume and I would make my own clothes and things like that. I would draw with my grandpa, but I also knew that I was good at working hard. I always had a lawn job even when I was young, and that was back in the day when you had to push the lawnmower by yourself. There was no gas. And I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved being at church and to be able to teach along with my dad, who was a pastor, and I would teach to my stuffed animals at night. I just knew that those were my talents. So when you look over this list of talents, these are talents that God has given to everybody, but not all the same combination. And I'm telling you that when I was young, I knew I was pretty good at teaching and at being creative, which is one of the reasons why I'm an art teacher today. But I want to tell you that sometimes God uses difficult times in your life to bring about a new talent in you. And it could be one of the most amazing talents you'll ever have that you never knew you had. And I sometimes like to call them a talent superpower. So let me tell you about something that happened in my life and how I think it kind of turned into a talent. And then I want us to be thinking about you and your special talents. So you guys know that I have one real leg and one fake leg. You're really good at telling which one is which. About 8 years ago, I put a ladder up against this palm tree here, and I went up to the top and I was taking some Christmas decorations down. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, sure enough, the ladder fell and I fell with it. And I shattered what's called the talus. The talus is the bone right in the middle of your ankle. Well, right away, I was brought to the hospital. And it turned out that it caused me to become very, very sick. Because not only was that bone broken, and here you can see how they tried to put it together with metal and screws, but my body was being attacked by a bacteria called Pseudomonas. And no matter how many pills and how many IV antibiotics and however much they gave me, that bacteria was infecting my body and making me very sick. For a year and a half, no matter how many different things they tried to put new bone inside of me. They tried to have me walk with a cane. That didn't work. All of my bone in my ankle just kept dying and dying. So eventually we decided that we needed to cut off the bad part so that I could wear a fake leg instead. And so here's a picture of Mr. Heaturks and I in the hospital, and you can see that in the bed, I got 2 feet, and when I come out, I only have one. And then I had to spend a lot of time in the hospital or at home getting better and having that heal. I learned how to drive without a right foot anymore. And eventually I had a new leg made for me. And lo and behold, you know me now. You guys know how I bop around and go here and there and dance stupid and whatever, that I'm able to do really well with my fake leg. And it's not the answer to prayer that everyone was hoping for, but it ended up being an awesome answer to prayer. It's just that God answered it in a little bit different way than we were expecting. So let me tell you, when I was so sick, people would come up to me and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Oh my goodness, you look so great." And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's going great." But inside, I was like, "Oh, this is awful." Because look what was happening in my house. My kids were sad. Mr. Heatrix was having to wrangle our kids down to be able to brush their teeth. He was washing my hair. My own daughter was changing my wounds. My other daughter was always at the hospital with me. My mom was always going to surgeries. I kept saying, "Yeah, it's going good," but I was lying. It wasn't. It really was stinky. It was not a fun time. It was sad. It was scary. But the one thing that I always knew was that God had a plan. He has a plan. He loves me. He's not going to leave me here like this. I'm not going to be going around in a wheelchair forever. Things are going to work out. I just need to trust him. And lo and behold, there were so many people who slowly started to inspire me. When I would talk to my nurses and my doctors who were so good, some of my best nurses and doctors, I'd say, how did you become such a good nurse? How did you become such a good doctor? Is it because you studied really hard in school? And they'd go, yeah, well, it kind of started because my dad was sick. And then that made me realize what it was like to have a sick parent. Or they would tell me these stories where it was obvious that because they went through something that was kind of hard in their life, they were really good at what they did. It was like God gave them a talent that they discovered through something that was really tough. Now, Mr. Hedricks and I were trying to decide if I should have the amputation or not. There was a girl in my class who was born without an arm, and her name is Alexa. And I remember that on the first day of first grade, they came to art. And a little boy who was new in her class looked at her and went, ew, that's gross. He said that about her arm. And she looked at him and said, this is how God made me. Like, I'm just fine. And do you know that Alexa, using one arm, was able to do every art project that I ever assigned? And so do you know that when I was thinking about having to cut off my leg, and I thought, oh, people are always going to feel sorry for me. They're going to feel bad for me. No, I thought, you know what? No one feels bad for Alexa. No one's sitting there saying, oh, poor little girl born without an arm. No one's doing that. They're all like, she is amazing. She is a rock star. Look at her. Look how she's relying on God. Look at what she's doing with just one arm. And I thought, I am going to be like Alexa. Alexa inspired me. Do you see that? She has gone through something hard, but that has made her very strong and very powerful, and God uses that talent. So it kind of ended up that my talent started off being teaching and creativity, but in the end, it became that I was good at encouraging. When people go through a really hard time, that maybe they get hit by a car, or maybe they have something that causes them to have amputation, if I come and they see me walk, that's immediately such an encouragement. I also feel like because God was so faithful to me, I can share that with people and be an encouragement in my faith. So this is what my goal for you is today. I would love for you to look at the chart that I'm going to have for you at the end of talents. And I'd love for you to talk about those talents that have been given to people by God and figure out which ones do you think you have? Which ones do you think that your parents have, or your brothers and your sisters and your friends? What are ones that you look at and go, oh yeah, I know who has the talent of praying. Like for me, Miss Blum. If you mention to her something, she's going to come back to you 3 days later and say, I've been praying for you. Amazing. I always want to pray for people, but I always forget. And here she always remembers. Amazing. But then I also want for you to think about something that maybe has been hard that you've gone through in your life that you think you might be able to use as a talent. Like I've seen this before. A kid comes into class and he's sad because his dog died. Do you know what? The first kid who's going to stand up is someone who's going to say, you know what, I'm so sorry. My dog died last year, so I know what it feels like. When you know what it feels like, you're that much better at being able to help someone who's going through the same thing. I know when I was sick, there was a girl in my daughter's class whose mom had cancer. And so they could talk about what that was like to have a mom in the hospital. Amazing. Or we've had kids who maybe their parents are fighting, or maybe they've gone through a divorce. And one kid who's so sad about that, someone else will be able to encourage them and say, I went through this. I'm here for you. We can talk about this. So sometimes the thing that's hard is what eventually makes you one of the most wonderful people to work for God. So I'd love for you to think about that today. And I'm going to tell you something. Mr. Hedricks and I love all of you so much. If you email us, we promise we are going to write you back, and we're going to tell you some talents that we've noticed in you too. Because it's fun to think about your talents, and it's fun to think about how you can be used by God. I love you so much. I miss you. Bye-bye.